a biblical perspective on life, culture, and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, Jesus made a point of visiting those in prison as a key indicator of whether or not we are one of his followers or sheep, as opposed to being a goat. And so today, it's our great honor to speak with a man who has been involved in prison ministry for 39 years, and his passion is to equip and inspire believers to be able to minister on some level. Reverend Arthur Hallett, welcome to Australia and welcome to the Vision Studios here today.
Thank you very much. Honored to be here.
Well, Arthur, 39 years in prison ministry, that is a long time. What caused you to get involved in prison ministry?
No, actually, I had relocated to Sarasota, Florida, and my wife connected with her aunt after many years, and her aunt had a son who was doing life in prison, and she was elderly, and she asked if we would go visit. So my wife and I hooked up with the local prison ministry to go in so that we could have some very close contact, and they were holding a program. They asked me to sing, so I said, okay, I'll sing, because I like to worship the Lord. And so I sang, and after I sang, the men said, hey, will you come back without that prison ministry? So I did. I came back the next week. And then they said, will you come back? And I kept coming back until finally a prisoner said, you know, you got a prison ministry. And I said, I got a what? He said, you got a prison ministry. So we had to sit down and see what that looked like. And one thing came to another. And I was actively engaged in the outreach ministry of my local church. I was doing evangelism there, being trained by my pastor who had just come out of Evangelism Explosion International and was training me to train the church. And so I said, you know what? I can't just keep coming back here and sing. So why don't I teach them what I'm teaching in the church? So I came back and I started training the men at this one prison in evangelism. And it went over so well that I started with 10, and before you know it, it was an explosion. It was an evangelism explosion because that's exactly what I was teaching them. And then finally, I used to think, I thought, no, wait a minute. If I ever leave this earth, what will happen to my ministry? And it was at that time that the Lord impressed upon my heart, any ministry that ceases when you cease is not a ministry of God. God's ministries go on. So I said, Lord, how can I make sure that this ministry go on? Because it was hard to get volunteers to come into the prison. They wouldn't do it. I mean, for a while there, I could get a preacher every once in a while to come into the prison on the weekend, but most of the time they were in their churches. And so I said, Lord, how am I going to reproduce myself? So the Lord said, write it down, video it down. So I made a video of my teaching, and that video today has been refined and edited, and it has evolved into a curriculum, a college-credited curriculum that they can get up to 6 college credit hours. Man. But it began back there when the Lord pressed upon my heart, you need to reproduce yourself. So as I finished these guys trained, it got to the point where my pastor came and said, look, Art, he says, you know, you're doing a great work out there, and we love what you're doing, and we're going to keep supporting you. He said, but you've outgrown our ability to really fund this whole thing. And it was at that time that I incorporated to get a little bit more help. And then he also said, and by the way, you can get your own secretary and give my secretary back because you're using my secretary more than I do. So history in the making. And so I thought initially I thought that God was going to release these men who were equipped and trained on how to share their faith, how to share the gospel. They were trained in communication skills. They were trained in life skills. They understood holistically how to connect with people. And I said, Lord, send them back to the church and start revival. But God didn't do that. I meant the local church. They're in the incarcerated church. Send them back to the local church and start revival. But he didn't do that. What God did was he started sending them around Florida. He would relocate them from one prison to the next. Some of them were even relocated to another state somewhere where they had to do federal time. And then after a period of time, I started getting phone calls from all around Florida from other prison chaplains saying, hey, whatever you taught this guy, can you come here and teach our guys? And so my ministry began to take off and it began to grow. And God used that to put me in more prisons. So by that time, I had the DVDs and I was able to mail different prisons the DVDs, and they were able to be trained through my DVD-based series. So.
That's amazing. But this all started with just a young guy going into a prison and just singing for the prisoners, and the fruit was there, the hunger was there from the prisoners. And like the Macedonian call, come over to Macedonia and help us to Paul. Art got the call from the prisoners, come and help us, come and minister to us. Amazing. Art, you mentioned before to me that there's some numbers that in the States where you are, that when people incarcerated in the incarcerated church go through your programs, your training programs, tell me about those stats of their how many of them reoffend.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the United States has the highest incarceration rate in the nation, something like 2.1 or 2.2 million people are incarcerated.
You mean in the whole world per capita?
Yeah, no. In the United States, not the whole world.
Yeah.
Just the U.S. So when we talk about Australia, that's a whole other number. But just the U.S., there are 2.2 million incarcerated in the U.S.
Yeah.
Okay, so, so the national recidivism rate there in the U.S. is running about 85%, and that means all the states combined, everybody in the nation there, 85% return within 3 years. We take a 3-year census, pretty much. So the latest statistic would show 85% about within 3 years. Now, each state has its own recidivism rate. Florida is not too high, maybe 40% or something like that. Texas is 60%, so you got that type of thing. Australia, by the way, is 42.5 or 45.5% return, but you guys take a 2-year return rate. So that's 85% return. They either return for the same crime, a new crime, or a parole violation.
Yeah, and that's nationwide.
That's nationwide.
85%
reoffend.
Yeah.
Now, in the year 2020, been doing this for 39 years. In the year 2020, we took a 20-year sample of our database of the men and women who would go through our curriculum and then be released. So we discovered that we had about 10,000 who had been trained through our ministry, and out of the 10,000, more than 9,000 have been released. And in 2020, we had a statistic of only 53% return to prison. Now, that's a 0.5% return rate. I always tell people, Jesus said, if you don't believe what I tell you, he said, believe in the miracles.
Yeah.
And that's a flat out miracle. And so that's why we're so busy. That's why I'm here. I'm here because that data ratio and the impact of what God has developed through this ministry is undisputable. You can't argue, with the data.
No, tell me the stat again. So what's the stat now when they go through your course? Yeah. What's the reoffending rate?
Only 5%, only 0.5% return.
Amazing.
That's what it is. Now I'm getting ready right now at this moment. My office assistant is taking a new statistic because this is 2024. We took that in 2020. So we got a 3-year time. So we want to see what has happened in these last 3 years. I'm actually going to take a 24-year statistic, and then I'll look at what was happening in the last 4 years. But we're doing that as I speak.
It's amazing. So you've come to Australia to train people to do what you do in the States, to do it here.
Exactly. We have a national ministry here, and Pete McCutcheon is the national director, and I'm the national director for prison ministries in the U.S. He is the national director for everything over here. So he covers it all.
Including looking after you when you come to Australia.
And they're taking good care of me. But I was here to train Pete and some of his directors. We also had the privilege of training, who was at our training, Graham, who is the director of prisons for, what is this called? This is the
state of Queensland, or the city of
Queensland.
Brisbane?
So he's over all of Queensland. So he was there at the training, and he's all excited after hearing the impact of this ministry and what they're getting ready to develop. So I brought with me all of my teaching, which I put in their hands. I've given them access to all of my teaching, all of my literature. I've given them everything, and they're going to take it, and what can be used as is, they will use as is, but they're also going to develop a curriculum that has an Aussie flavor to it. So they'll be going, "Good eye, mate," instead of hearing me saying, "What's happening, dude?" That's what I'd say on the tapes. I go, "What's happening, dude?" They'll be going, "Good eye, mate. Good eye."
You got that accent down pretty good.
All right. I'm working on it.
So, well, it's great to have you. It's actually an honor to have you. And so 39 years in prison ministry. Have you ever found yourself really connecting to some of the prisoners you've ministered to and just seen a great transformation over their lifetime?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now on my staff, I have 3 former offenders. I call them returning citizens. Each one of them did anywhere from 15 to 20 years. One of the guys on my staff, he had a 50-year sentence. God released him before 50. Released him in 20. And he got a few college credit through doing our curriculum. He did all my levels. And he even trained other men while he was in prison. He got a bachelor's degree before he got out of prison. Then he got out of prison and he went and God released him. He got his master's degree. And just recently he got his doctor's degree. And he's on my staff and he's in line maybe to take over for me. I have another young gentleman.
Well, let's just stop there. This guy, he's done 20 years inside.
Yeah.
And he's come out and he's got a master's degree now. What's his role in your organization? What does he do?
He is the director. He would be my director for Florida.
Man.
Okay. So he's responsible for recruiting supporters and volunteers, recruiting volunteers to do the work in the prisons throughout the Florida system.
Man. And did he meet Jesus in the prison? Is that where he got saved?
Yeah, he met Jesus before I met him. So when I caught up with him, he was on fire with the Lord. He just needed to be channeled in the direction of his destiny and his call to equip and train others. And that's what I like about the tool that we have. The tool was originally designed for the local church. And it's still a model of what we provide in the local church. And it's a lot of different tools that we offer to the local church. That's the main thing of it, because we know that 95% of the men and women are going to get out. Only 5% stay in. So we want to make sure that we sow into their lives how to share the gospel unequivocally, without any compromise, how relationally, not turn or burn, but how do you respect other people's beliefs and how do you share what you know, what you believe without forcing it on someone. We help them to understand that God did not call any of us to save anyone. You can't save. So once you get an individual out of the saving business, now they get into the planting and the watering. It becomes fun. Now in the local church setting, it's exciting to go visit the people in the church. It's exciting to go visit in the community because you're not afraid anymore. You're not there to save. You're there to plant in the water and watch God save. So by maintaining the integrity with which the ministry was designed for the local church, we prepare these men and women to come out of the prison, go into the local church. And if there's a local church that doesn't have an outreach ministry, these girls and guys are equipped and trained to say, "Pastor, let me show you how to do it. Let me take you out into the community and show you how to carry out the Great Commission." They are Great Commission minded. They have a Great Commission attitude. And so they're like, let's bring revival into the church. Oh, so finally, God is starting to do it. That's what I thought he was going to do in the beginning. But instead, he had to do some work on me. And that meant he had to send them to other prisons and get me prepared for this ministry, which now we're in 49 states. We're in 29 nations as of since I've been here. The 29th is Australia. My last state is Hawaii, and we're headed for that real soon. And soon we'll have all 50 states, and God is good. But the thing is, what I like about this thing above all is that right now our local ministries for the local church, like Pete's got a lot of local ministry here. You're getting ready to have an evangelism training on October 26th in Brisbane. And it's open to everyone. And so it's this tool called Evangelism Explosion that helps the believer to be able to articulate why they believe what they believe and helps them to connect with people, loved ones above all. The hardest people to witness to are our loved ones. But there is a way to plant seeds in the hearts of your loved ones to the point where they will want to seek God and know more about Christ and their relationship.
Amen.
That's what it's all about.
I love it. I love it. So this event on the 26th of October, how do they get in touch?
25th and 6th.
Yeah, 25 and 26. So how do they get in touch? What's the website they've got to go to find out more information?
Evangelism Explosion
Australia.org. Evangelism Explosion Australia.org. I would encourage any of our listeners who want to find out more or get involved. There's an event on October 25 and 26 in Brisbane, Australia. But if you're not in Brisbane, you can't get to the event, but you want to find out more, it's Evangelism Explosion Australia.org. Brother Art, I could listen to you all day. You've got some amazing stories, and God has used you so wonderfully. I mean, I can sense it in my heart. This thing is of God, and I can just see it growing and growing and impacting more and more people. You are 71 on paper. You look about 41. You're ripped like Rambo. I think you've got another 30 years left in you. So, Brother Art, next time you're in Australia, make sure you visit us again. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.